Oh my goodness, I am so excited. I have the most incredible podcast to share with you. I'm so excited. We're going to be chatting with the one and only Sally Obermeder. Now, in this podcast, it's raw, it's very open, it's incredibly honest. There's going to be a few swear words in here, so if you don't like profanities, perhaps maybe fast forward when you sense that one of us might swear. But it's a brilliant podcast. Now, during the podcast, Sally doesn't mention this, but she's very kindly offered everyone, all the listeners right now, a 15% code if they'd like to try any of her Swish wellness products. The code that she has created is CANA15. It's not an affiliate link, by the way. It's just for anyone who's never tried her products and would like to try them or would like to maybe make the most of a discount. So by all means, feel free to use this discount code. And as I said, it's not an affiliate link. Now, as always, I like to do the responsible thing and let you know that all of my content, whether it be a blog post, a podcast, or something you see on Instagram or YouTube, it's always general advice only. There's never product advice. As you listen to this podcast, you'll know it's certainly not strategic advice. And it's purely for your financial education, inspiration, and knowledge. All right, let's listen into this conversation. You are going to love Sally even more if you don't already. Ready. Today we have the one and only Sally. Oh my God. Obermeder. I was like, no, I knew your surname, but I'm like, I'm going to say that incorrectly.
No,
my God, that is so me. She's like, Sally Obermeder.
Obermeder. Yeah.
Where's that from, by the way?
It's German. So Marcus's dad is German. His mum was Czech. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that's actually not my maiden name because my dad's Egyptian and my mum was French. So it's
wow.
a bit of a
beautiful
a mix.
Obermeder. I knew how to say it, but I was like, I'm going to say it wrong. And about 20 minutes before you came, I'm like, I bet I say it wrong. Like I'll put a T in there, and so my brain just froze. Okay, Obermeder. Sally, you're a media personality. But you are also someone who has done so much in life. You obviously survived cancer. You are a mother. You are an author. You have been on Channel 7. You're a keynote speaker. And I also discovered you studied the same course as me, Bachelor of Commerce.
Did you?
Yes. And you did finance and investing.
Yes. I worked in investment banking for 10 years.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And here you are today. You really deviated from finance.
It's weird. It was, my parents were accountants.
Really?
That's why. So they were like, you've got to go down the very safe path. Accounting's, it's very steady. And I was like very compliant back then. And I did. And so, I did accounting and marketing at uni, a commerce degree, and then went from there into accounting. I worked at Westpac.
Oh, I was at St. George Bank.
Were you? Yeah. And it was exciting. Like I actually loved it until I didn't love it anymore. But for 10 years I worked in investment banking and I loved it. And even though technically I don't do that anymore, you would know these things, they stay with you.
Yes.
The lessons that you learn, the things that you learn, I still use them today.
Okay, I've got a whole pile of questions I'm going to ask you because you've gone through many highs and lows.
Yep, definitely.
And I'm all about being open and transparent because when you hear someone's story, you can learn so much about them without having to necessarily go through it yourselves. And I've listened to people's stories and they've been great, like warnings or signs or it's made me a wiser, stronger person or it's given me a new perspective or a new, I guess my character has developed. And that's why I love sharing these stories and I know you have so much to share. So I've got a whole pile of questions I'm going to hit you up with.
Go for it.
The first question I have for you is Swish.
Yes.
This is your baby.
Yep.
Where did you find the motivation to start all this up?
So we started Swish. So I'm a co-founder with my sister and we started the business. It was when I was still in treatment for cancer and I had this idea and I was like, if I get through this, I want to start a business. I want to basically help people feel as good as they can feel because I'd always loved wellness. And I had already, I'd worked as a personal trainer for a couple of years. I wish I'd finished now. I did 2 years of a naturopathy degree.
Wow.
After my investment banking stint, basically, I wanted to work in media and it took me 4 years to get a job. So in that 4-year kind of in-between gap, I became a personal trainer and a Pilates instructor. And it completely transformed, I guess. I had always loved wellness. I basically am the person who spends all their time in the health food store, just like kind of at a very young age. And that was kind of quite transformative. And I was like, oh my God, the power of eating well, moving, supplementing, monitoring then how you feel and adjusting. I did my naturopathy, or half my naturopathy degree, and then I got a job in media. Put it aside, and I was like, look, I'll come back to it if media doesn't work out. And of course, I ended up staying at Seven for like 20 years.
Yeah.
But during my cancer kind of treatment, I was like, I want to go back to the thing that I loved, which is feeling really good, and I want to help other people feel really good, and I feel like I could do that. And that's where Swish essentially came from. We're all about basically products and programs that help you feel amazing. So whether that's helping you look after your gut or your skin or whatever it is, because we're all, I think there's so much power in actually feeling good. And I don't just mean like looking good, that's something, but actually when your body works, then you're in a better frame of mind. You're stronger mentally, you're stronger physically.
You can handle challenges. You've got that resilience.
Correct. And that's what we wanted.
Was it really scary going from even the safety and security of a job in media, which at times cannot be secure at all, to then this new business?
Well, what I did was I actually started Swish while I was still at Seven. So I was, so I had the challenge. And look, there's no perfect answer. Sometimes, on one hand, it's great because I've already got this sort of full-time job, and there's no kind of huge, particularly in the beginning, huge pressure on the business because I've got a job. But also the flip side of that is you've got this huge job, so you're not actually also as focused on the business as you should be. So look, everything comes at a cost, When people say like, should you have a job on the side or jump out? And I'm like, look, only you can decide for you. But like if I had my time again, I do think there's a lot of value. If you want to do something, you want to give it your 100%. There's no question. And I think for many years, perhaps the business didn't grow as rapidly as it could have, simply because I didn't have the full capacity to give it my full attention. So, there's a trade-off there. So it wasn't as daunting. And I think, and we started sort of small and it grew very organically. I hear people now when they want to start a business, they're like, I've written out a 3-year plan and here's how I'm going to scale. And I was like, wow, that's not a word I was using. When I started, it was the growth was organic and very kind of, as we heard what customers wanted in terms of products or whatever, we would develop them and formulate them. It's only now that we work, like when I say now, I mean in the last few years, actually with a much more commercial mindset, a much more, as the team grows and your responsibility grows in the community and your customers grow, that you start to go, oh, hang on a minute, this is a very different operation. I can't just kind of fly by the seat of my pants like, hey, is anyone interested in a sleep powder? Like maybe we'll, formulate that. It's actually like, oh, no. We need to be strategic.
Yeah, we need to think this through, plan it out, work out how we're going to bring it to the market in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Talk me through the highs and lows where things were amazing, but then things suddenly hit the wall and it became stressful. Like what happened? How did you get through?
So we've had plenty of those in kind of 7 or 8 years of being in business. You have all kinds of horrendous things. We've had like supply chain issues. We've had things that sell out, and I remember early on hearing other people say like, oh, Mummy, my product's all sold out. And I was like, oh, well, boo-hoo, that must just be awful for you, poor you, because it sounds like that's not a problem. And then years later, I remember we launched a collagen hot chocolate and it sold out. And even though you've got your production run, then you've got your buffer, and then you've got your buffer on your buffer just in case. Yeah. And when it all had sold out, that sounds like a fantastic issue, but it's actually really terrible because production timelines take so long. So it's not like you can be like, oh, I'll be back on the shelf in a week or whatever. It's 3 months or it's 4 months to basically get ingredients into the country.
Wow.
Do a manufacturing run, actually all of that stuff. And in that time, you've got basically customers who are upset, or you risk them losing to another brand. So it's actually, and in that time that you don't have that to sell, you still have expenses, you still have a team, you still have wages, you still have rent. So it was really, I think that was actually quite stressful, but a good lesson, because after that we were like, I never ever want this to happen again. This is actually, we needed to factor more of a buffer. But we also had a period about, I think 5 years ago, Alyssa, my second child, because I had cancer, she was going to be born via a surrogate. So we went to the States to have her. And when I left, so Maha and I, at this stage, Marcus, my husband, was not working with us in the business. So he worked separately. He's in finance. I was leaving to go to the States. And I said, listen, while I'm gone, I was obviously doing all the accounting, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I've got that background. I was paying bills. It's all good. And I said, listen, while I'm gone, will you please like kind of pay all the bills and cover everything for me while I'm gone? He's like, yeah, for sure, for sure. So we left, we being Maha and I, because she came with me on this trip for Alyssa's birth. And we went to Hawaii first and we're staying at like this cool hotel and we're in the cabana every day and we're shopping and we're like, because the business is going well, right?
Yeah,
we're like high-fiving each other all the time. So good. And so we'd spent like quite a bit of money in Hawaii having a great old time. Easily done, right? We get to Milwaukee where the birth is and Marcus rings us and he's like, listen, guys, I'm paying all the bills. I've got good news and bad news. And we're like, okay, well, give us the good news first. He's like, hey, the good news is things are trending upwards. And we're like, duh. Like, obviously, like, I mean, tell us something we don't know. Like, we know it's going really well. We're so good. We're so clever. He's like, okay, the bad news is you'll be bankrupt in 3 months.
What?
We were like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah. So what's happening, he said, is essentially you're running, which I was, like one pot, right? Like all the money, so from all different revenue streams was in the one pot.
Okay.
You know, we've got books, we've got advertising revenue, we have product, we've got programs, they're all together. He said, but what you're actually doing is you've got some revenue streams here. Not only are they making no money, they're making a loss. And you're funding them via other revenue streams that are making money. For example, the products are making money and the books are making money, but the programs make none or like whatever it was, you know. And he said, actually, and the margins are all wrong. And we were like, and Marcus fortunately comes from, his parents have always had businesses. So margins and these are things that like, these are not investment banking terms. Investment banking, for all its like wowness, is very different to business.
Yes.
These are very different concepts. People think, finance is just one big pot. It's all the same.
Yeah. I have to say, a lot of my big clients were all, you know, CEOs, CFOs, people in really serious management roles that were managing businesses' money but couldn't manage their own personal money. So this is such a myth that people think, you're in investment banking or you're in finance, you must be so good with your own money.
Correct.
Not necessarily the case.
And I had never really kind of like, we had done our pricing based on like, it costs us, you know, X to produce this product. What do I think you should pay for it? You know, this is kind of, you know, at that point I was really working on gut feel. Like, I think you should pay $49. And he's like, yeah, but you haven't factored in like postage. The margins are all wrong here. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh
so
my gosh,
he was the worst.
And there you are going to.
And there we are, like so we'd already spent all the money in Hawaii, can I tell you? And so then from then we were like, okay, no more restaurants, and we'll be eating at happy hour down in the hotel lobby, and like we really like rolled it right back. But he said it was shit because here we were having worked all this time and thinking everything was great. And he said, basically, if you don't want this to go under, I suggest essentially you basically put a stop on your pay for the next 3 months, right? Can like, you know, I mean, him and I could survive, Maha could survive. He's like, for 3 months, you guys don't get any pay.
Yeah, you just tighten the belt.
The belt. We have to literally redo all the profit margins. We need to turn this around. We have to strip out the areas that don't make any money. And, you know, if you want to keep them because they're like a passion project, that's fine, but can't be funding things that make money and with things that don't make money. And we were like, oh, and it was a sickening time.
I bet.
Like we were like, this is a disaster. But can I tell you, it was one of the best things that ever happened to us because it sharpened our lens. It got us really a lot more focused on the numbers. We became much more in the numbers, which you have to be.
Yeah. I know my numbers off the top of my head. Like you could give me an expense and say, what software program have you got? What does it cost? I'll tell you.
Wow.
Like, because you need to know the numbers because that's where you've got to think, okay, where is an efficient use of my money? Where is an efficient use of my time?
Correct.
And especially it is hard with passion projects and you think, I love doing this. It's so much fun.
Yes.
If that's the case, own it.
Correct.
Honestly,
own it for what it is.
Okay, my profit margin is $3 here. Keep going if that's what's important to you, but then you need to be honest and real with
100%.
yourself. Yeah.
And a business at the end of the day, and it's really hard because when you love what you do, you don't want it to be about money. But essentially, if you're going to help people, you have to keep the business afloat. And to keep the business afloat, you have to make revenue. That's just what it is.
When it comes to making business and obviously staying afloat financially, that time where you had to literally go with no pay for 3 months it's like basically being unemployed for 3 months.
But still doing the work.
Still working your backside off. How did you cope mentally?
Look, I'm pretty resilient. I think because I've been through worse stuff.
Yeah.
I'm very much, I think even sort of despite being through bad things, I'm always like an end game player.
Yeah.
Like I'm big picture.
Yeah. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
There's light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm like, I know why I'm doing this, so I'm happy to do it. And I don't care. I have slightly what I would call like a bit of a we call it chip, wood chip, which is like you're just going to chip away at something. Like I have that mentality. I don't mind. If there's 700 people in the queue, then I will wait.
Yes.
I will wait. And I know that most people will get bored of waiting and they'll exit the queue. And I'm like, awesome. I've just moved up in the queue. So I'm really patient and I'm really diligent. So I'm happy to I don't care how long something takes. Let's keep going.
Whenever something is like challenging that comes out, for me or for Tom, we always say there's a blessing in disguise. There's a reason this is happening.
Yeah.
And I think when something really frightening and challenging is going on in your life, it's because there's something better. And it sounds like for you became much more astute with your financial affairs personally and for your business affairs. And for, really upping your game and switching on to a much more entrepreneur commercial mindset.
Much more. And it was funny. And I think because Marcus looked and does still look after all of our home finances. So I was a little bit more relaxed, I guess, with it. And there was less staff. Now, as the smaller something is, the less risk there is, where if it topples over. But the bigger it gets, the more you're like, oh my God, there's more at stake here. There's more people who are employed. There's more staff. There's more expenses. There's more. So the bigger it gets, also the better I've become, the sharper I've become, the more astute I've become. And also you make tougher decisions. You just have to.
In your journey, you obviously become really switched on with money from a business point of view. How are you with your personal finances?
So, it's funny. Marcus manages our day-to-day finances and I'm super happy to, in a way, I have
divide and conquer.
Divide and conquer 100%. And he comes from a finance background as well, right? And clearly given that he knew about the margins and all that stuff that I didn't know, he's possibly slightly better at it than me. But I have always been very, I wanted to take ownership of my money. So my first job, which was at Westpac, so I wanted to buy an apartment. So I must have been 21 and I went to get a loan. And so back then there was no 100% loans. Obviously you had to have a 20% deposit and I hadn't saved it. So I had this idea, I hope this isn't illegal and I go to jail. Can I still get you for something you did at 21? Can you still go to jail? Yeah. This wasn't me. This was a friend of mine. So I was like, okay, where am I going to get this deposit? Why don't I go get a personal loan and I can use my personal loan for the deposit? I don't know if this is allowed anyway.
So don't think so. That's okay. I'm sure
anyway, I don't think they can get me anymore.
No, I think that window closed.
So I went to quite a big branch and they wouldn't give me the deposit. So then this personal loan, the guy was like, no. Back then the branch manager had authority. So I was like, do you know what I might do? I'm going to go to a small branch where the person at a small branch will be looking to get hit their KPIs, right? Like at a big place, he's going to be like, you're a small fish here. I don't want to lend you. It was only like 16,000. So it was not a lot of money. I bought an apartment for like 80,000 or 88,000. And which in itself is insane, like when you think about Sydney property now. And so I was like, what's the small, and I did all this research on the smallest possible branch. And the smallest branch was at the Rocks, right? There was it was literally like the size of a shoe cupboard. It was super cute. There was one tiny branch manager there, and I went there and I asked for a personal loan. He's like, yes, of course you can.
Sign here.
I was like, amazing. I took my personal loan. And then I used that as the deposit for the apartment.
And the bank never picked this up.
Because I think it was look, I'm 48 years, a long time ago. Probably that, it's probably much tighter now.
Just for the record, I'm not recommending anyone do that, but thank you for sharing.
Yes.
And let's hope you don't go to jail.
But it's about when you want to, I wanted to basically get my foot in the door in the property market. And I wanted, and look, I paid it back. It's not like I didn't take it from anyone. I just, and I wanted to look after my own finance. I wanted to grow up and take ownership of my financial health.
Of course. That drive for independence was huge for me. I mean, and I think I stayed for 6 years for my deposit, and I swear my tooth fairy money was in my deposit.
Oh my
but
God.
I was obsessed.
But that's great.
I was obsessed with it. I was just like, anything I could do to earn some extra money, outside of my job, I would do that to make it happen because I was so determined and dedicated to that end goal, the light at the end of the tunnel.
So do you think that you're more a safe, because see, I can tell already now, like in just these 2 stories, you'll save, whereas I was much more like, I'll get debt. Are you a saver?
Back then, I was a saver. Like I was very frugal. I'd take my lunch to work. I mean, now I'm frugal to invest.
Yes.
I'm now, and obviously we have a mortgage, so frugal to pay that off. But by then I know, because I was saving for my deposit.
Yeah.
It was being frugal to save for that goal of buying my first place.
So good.
Can I ask you a little bit about like, how did you grow up? Like, did your parents talk about money? Was money talked about as a subject?
It was not. And isn't that funny? They were both accountants. Yeah. So I grew up in Castle Hill. So very much like a middle class family. It was, money was not talked about, which I think is really strange. But interestingly, I had this sort of, would I say it's a strange relationship with money? Maybe. I think I had this sort of sense that if you used your good luck, in inverted commas, for money, then you would waste your good luck in other areas of your life. So therefore, I had this notion that I would never, like, for example, get a lotto ticket. Because if I won the lotto, then I would have used up, I don't know, somehow that got...
You've only got a defined amount of luck and you would be taking away from the rest of your other luck.
Yeah, and so therefore I had this notion that I don't want to use my luck for money. I would rather earn my money and save my luck for things I have no control over, which is...
That's a financial block, I would call that.
It was 100% a financial block. And can I tell you, having just quite recently, maybe in the last 18 months, really worked on my financial blocks and this came up for me and I was like... Where did I even get that from? What a crazy notion.
It's incredible when you actually invest time exploring your blocks, how insightful it is. And like, I'm a financial planner and I live and breathe money and wealth creation every single day. And I'm discovering financial blocks for myself. And it's funny, I was listening to this podcast by Nikki Sharp.
Yes,
I'm so slow to the party. I've just found her podcast. They're amazing. And she was talking about these toxic habits. And I was listening to it. I'm like, I could start applying that to my own finances. And I'm actually going to do a separate podcast on this. But I discovered I had one on my earning capability. I was like, why do I think I only need to earn this amount of money?
Wow.
And yes, that amount covers my living expenses and allows...
But why have a ceiling on it?
Why? Like, we live in an abundant universe. The sky's the limit.
Yes.
Why stop this block and really try and release it? And it was really liberating. I was like, and it's like I shook it off.
Wow.
And cobwebs.
And it's having the awareness, right? Like once you're aware of it, you're like, why do I think that? That's crazy.
And Nikki Sharp's question is does this serve you?
And it wasn't serving me.
It wasn't serving you.
No, at all.
How do you talk to your beautiful daughters about money?
So now Annabelle is 10, Alyssa is 5, and we talk about money all the time. You know, what things cost. What does that mean in relation? You know, because sometimes, I'll hear Annabelle say to Alyssa, XYZ is, $40. That's so much money. And I'm like, okay, we have to put this in context. $40 on, I don't know, an overpriced sandwich, that's so much money. $40 on an experience that you'll have is not so much money. So also like food, money, I think can have this tendency to be labeled good, bad, and I don't like those definitive labels on them. It's like, well, but what is the money for? What are we using it for? So we talk about that a lot. We talk about, I don't like those things like rich or poor or, it's like, no, there isn't any of that. It's like we have to actually understand what the money is. And also now empowering them. Annabelle's 10, she wanted pocket money. And I was, and she was like, I really would like $20 a week. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to just give you $20 a week. And she's like, well, I'll help around the house. And I was like, well, no, but you're supposed to help around the house anyway because we're a family. We all chip in, we all help. We do this kind of together. I was like, if you do extra things, we've got her a Spriggy card, which I have to tell you is such an incredible idea. Whoever came up with that was a genius,
Rocco has something similar. And it's a great introduction to the cashless society because I remember talking to someone and they were like, no, my children must have cash and coins. And I listened and I was like, yes, that practically sounds great. But in the real world, they're never going to see money.
They're not.
I found $55 in New Zealand dollars the other day. So I took it to the currency exchange. Yeah. I was so excited. He gave me coins and notes. So I was like,
what do I do with this?
Dirty. Like, can't you just put it in my account? She's like, no, you have to take it. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this?
Most places don't take cash anymore,
No,
you know?
But this is the world going forward. Why teach a child physical money? It's not practical. I mean, I don't want to disregard it completely, but we've got to teach our children to adapt in the world and direction that we're going.
Completely. And, I think it's actually been good her having this card, because prior it's nothing for her to be like, oh, can I have a baby chino? Can I have a croissant? Can I have this? Can I have a bubble tea? Can I have... Yeah, you got that card now.
Just go and tap away and then go and check the balance after you've tapped and come back to me.
Now she taps and she goes, $6.70 for a bubble tea. That's a lot. And I was like, yeah, it's funny how when it's your own money, it's a lot, but when it was mine, it was nothing. So this sense of now, now she's looking at it and I'm making her save half. So I'm like, for all you earn, you have to save half and then you have to put 10% away for charity. So then you've actually only got like 40% to spend because, so then now she's very careful.
Kylie Clark said something very similar about her daughter and said how, I think her daughter wanted some jeans or something like that, and she gave her a bit of a talking about what's good value for money.
Yes.
And then she got that sense of perspective and saw I think 2 different toys or 2 different jeans and she was like, oh, no way, that is not good value for money.
And it's important to know that. And it's like and also what do you place value on? I also say that to the girls. Like, for example, I really place value on a beautiful restaurant experience. That means a lot to me. That might not mean as much to somebody else who might want to buy hardcover books or, I don't know, like a theatre or whatever it might be. A handbag, So it's also about what is it that kind of sets your soul on fire that you want to spend your money on.
All right, so what is the hardest lesson you've ever learned about money?
Communication, I think. So Marcus and I, early in our marriage, bought a house. God, communication is so important. So he agreed to buy the house because he thought that was what I really wanted, and I agreed to buy the house because I thought that's what he really wanted. And actually, neither of us really, really wanted the house. And it's a house.
And stamp duty came with that house too.
No, wait, the year that we bought the house, I should say, there was stamp duty on sales as well as purchases. The New South Wales government also. So it was, clusterfuck is the only way to use my language. So it was very early in our marriage, and it was a really valuable lesson about, communication in general, but especially communication around money, because these are big waste of money, so much money, so wildly crazy, know.
What happened? Where did you both then discover, hang on, no, you didn't want this house? No, I didn't, did you?
So it was on the north side. We both wanted to live east. I felt like, I didn't want to basically be like a nightmare who's like, I only want to, we didn't have enough money to buy in the east. He was like, well... and so I was like, it was in Kirribilli. I was like, no, I really like it here. It's kind of like a compromise. Like, it's fine. And he was like, well, this is not actually really, really where I want to be either, but it's a compromise. It's almost like we're both trying to compromise, and actually neither person got what they wanted, but neither of us really spoke up and just said, listen, this isn't what I want, because we both also felt like it's a good decision. It's sensible. It's the right thing to do.
It's what you do as a young married couple.
Yeah, and it's a good purchase. Like, on paper, it's a good purchase. But you shouldn't always do. And I think that was a good lesson. Sometimes just because things are good on paper, even for money, doesn't mean we should do them.
When being a financial planner, clients will say, should I be doing this or should I be doing that? Like, I've got this money for that. And the first thing I'll say is, what do you want to do? Because, yes, I can tell you about what the most savvy, efficient, wealth creation strategy is for you in your situation and your goals. But if your heart is actually somewhere else,
that's right.
I'm not going to put my name on a piece of paper and tell you to do something that contradicts you not achieving that.
That's right.
Sometimes you need to take a little bit more time to pay off the home loan, not try and pay it off in 10, 15 years, but maybe take 17 years and make sure that you factor in an annual holiday for your family, because that's where your heart is.
That's right.
It's not all about the numbers.
That's right.
It's about the experience and the journey.
And this is your life. This is your one life. This is it.
Yeah.
This is it. You know what I mean? And so it's hard because numbers are so black and white, but life is not black and white. And so you're trying to make these things connect together, you know?
And people get really overwhelmed and anxious about those decisions and thinking, oh, I've got to toe the line, or I've got to follow the herd mentality, or, seem to be doing the right thing, and that whole white picket fence and, this is what you do.
That's right.
My next question for you is, what is your proudest financial accomplishment?
I think the business, it's had a huge growth, huge years of growth, and we're bootstrapped. And I think to have never taken any investment money. So if you're not sure what bootstrapping is, it means basically your own money. You're not taking the investment. And so it's really, I didn't mean you don't understand. No. I know you know.
To be honest, I had never heard that term, but as soon as you said, I knew exactly what you meant. But I'm the same. I've never borrowed any money.
Yeah.
And in fact, before I set up SAS Financial, I went to my parents to ask them if I could borrow some money from them to set it up, and they said no. And I was so pissed off at the time. Thought, but then it forced me to do it on my own.
That's right.
And thank goodness I did, because I can be really proud of myself with that practice. So.
It's huge. It's huge. I think to have a business that you kind of do yourself, and it's hard because there are times that you do need massive capital injection. We just moved, say, for example, from our old office over to a new huge, massive warehouse in Alexandria. And it's the fit out is hundreds of thousands of dollars. The rent is hundreds of thousands of dollars. Every time you do a new product, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars in development. And it's you don't have an investor pool of money to be I'll just tap into that. I'll hardly. So it's to keep that growth and momentum going when you're self-funded, I think I'm so proud of us for that.
I think you should be. It sounds like you are doing incredible things with your range, and I follow you on Instagram, and I love seeing all the stuff that you're doing. I love seeing your outfits of the day. I was just admitting about my shoe obsession of yours. I'm not allowed to message you anymore to say where did you get those from, because now I'm saying
you can always message
shoe fetish stalker that's really unhinged. When it comes to financial well-being, and how important do you think it is for women to take their personal finances seriously?
Massive. I think it's massive. And I think one of the biggest flaws is not teaching money in schools.
Huge.
I think it's just absolutely crazy. I think it's we send kids out into the world and they've got geography and biology and they've got all these other things, which is all well and good, but the very core of absolutely every day is money.
Maths and money.
Money, the value of it, what to do with the investment. I know my friend's got boys and they go to a different school, obviously my girls, and they have an investment club.
Oh, wow.
And I was so was I. And she's like, they have this investment club and they basically have this sort of arbitrary money and they learn and they invest it, in the stock market. And I was like, how fantastic. That's what I am. And I do think, and I've got girls, and I do think it's so important that women take ownership and not just kind of hope someone else will take care of it, because actually, like anything, whether it's your mental wellness, your physical wellness, you would never hand your mental wellness over to someone, or you'd never ask someone to look after you. Can you go to the gym for me? That's just not. And so money is the same. Exactly. You have to look after your own money.
And when it comes to looking after your own money, it's about, sticking, living within your means, having a budget, knowing where your money goes and you deciding where it goes.
Yep. In the grand scheme of life, these things can be boring. When you're would you like to come to a long lunch, or would you like to review your insurances? Well, I'm pretty sure I know what most people would choose. And so therefore it gets pushed aside,
it does.
Right?
And
until it becomes critical. And then you're if only I'd looked at this.
Yeah, it's often too late.
Yeah.
And as women and mothers in particular, how often do we put ourselves down the bottom of the list?
Crazy.
Thank you so much. I have one, it's actually two, to wrap this podcast with you up, which I still can't believe you agreed to come on. I'm so grateful.
I love it.
Hit me up with what is an area where you like to splurge and what is an area where you're actually really frugal?
Okay, so I'm a splurger. I designer handbags. Actually, I am a splurger, but I'm a saver for them. So my birthday, basically I always ask I have a bag fund, right? And it's birthday money. I'll always say, rather than buying me a candle or a Witchery voucher or whatever, please just give me cash and I will squirrel it away for 3 years or whatever until Christmas, Mother's Day, everything, everyone.
Yeah.
And then I wait until I've got enough and then I buy designer bags. So I actually am a splurger in bags. But funnily enough, I have...
Just, no judgment here.
Yeah. You're in a safe space.
You're safe here.
Yeah. And I think where do I spend the least?
Where do you like to be frugal? Is there something where you're like, I will not be wasting my money on that?
Like, what? Don't waste my money on, like, I
imagine you'd never spend your money on junk food, for example.
Oh, no, I do. No. No, I do actually. Look, I'm a high street shopper. So like, for as much as I love a designer bag, I'm not an expensive clothes person. Okay. Like, I really am not. I'm very much like, sometimes people are like, that T-shirt, where's that from? I'm like, oh, this is from Kmart. Oh, yeah. This is like, this is from Cotton On, I am actually what else do I like? Not like jewellery, it's all like, everyone's like, oh, that's amazing. It's like, that's from Lovisa, and it was like 14 of them for $5 or whatever. Like, like, I really am not kind of, I don't spend a lot in those places. I don't spend a lot actually around the house either. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not someone who has like huge fresh flowers each week or whatever. Like, occasionally I'll be like, oh, I'll get flowers from the market. I'll buy like one bunch or whatever. Like, I will sometimes buy my flowers from Woolworths. Yeah. And I'm actually really quite happy with that. Like, I'm not sort of, I definitely am not like, I don't, spend $100 on a candle. Like, I won't do that. I think that's probably more kids' clothes. Definitely, like, I'm super like lean. I'm like, the rate at which they churn through them, I'm Kmart, Cotton On. Like, I keep it super kind of tight there. I think they're sort of my biggest ones because I like to spend money on restaurants, experiences, travel.
Date night, I saw.
Date night, absolutely. Every single week we do date night.
That's important.
So I spend it there, I think, is where I spend it.
Thank you so much for coming on to today's podcast. I'm so incredibly grateful, and this is just, it's really, every now and again I glance at my notes and I'm like, no, I just need to listen. and I've got this other question I want to ask, but I'm not sticking to my list. I hope this is okay. So
it has been amazing. Yeah. Thank you. I loved it.
For all the listeners, please make sure you go and follow Sally on personal account and business account. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being so honest and transparent, even about your pending bankruptcy and corporate
am I
theft.
Going to go to jail? I didn't pay the loan back.
All right, everyone, have a fantastic week, and thank you so much for listening. If you can leave a rating and review, as always, I'd be so grateful. Ciao for now. This podcast with you up, which I still can't believe you agreed to come on. I'm so grateful.
I love it.
Hit me up with what is an area where you like to splurge and what is an area where you're actually really frugal.
Okay, so I'm a splurger. I designer handbags. Actually, I am a splurger, but I'm a saver for them. So my birthday, so basically I always ask for, I have a bag fund, right? And it's like birthday money. I'll always say, rather than buying me like a candle or a witchery voucher or whatever, please just give me cash and I will squirrel it away for like 3 years or whatever until like Christmas, Mother's Day, everything, like everyone.
Yeah.
And then I wait until I've got enough and then I buy designer bags. So I actually am a splurger in bags. But funnily enough, I have...
Just, no judgment here.
Yeah. You're in a safe space.
You're safe here.
Yeah. And I think where do I spend the least?
Where do you like to be frugal? Is there something where you're like, I will not be wasting my money on that?
Like, I don't waste my money on, like, I
imagine you'd never spend your money on junk food, for example.
Oh, no, I do. No. No, I do actually. Look, I'm a high street shopper. So like, for as much as I love a designer bag, I'm not an expensive clothes person. Okay. Like, I really am not. I'm very much like, sometimes people are like, that T-shirt, where's that from? I'm like, oh, this is from Kmart. Oh, this is like, this is from Cotton On, I am actually what else do I like? Not like jewellery, it's all like, everyone's like, oh, that's amazing. It's like, that's from Lovisa, and it was like 14 of them for $5 or whatever. Like, like, I really am not kind of, I don't spend a lot in those places. I don't spend a lot actually around the house either. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not sort of, I'm not someone who has like huge fresh flowers each week or whatever. Like, occasionally I'll be like, oh, I'll get flowers from the market. I'll buy like one bunch or whatever. Like, I will sometimes buy my flowers from Woolworths. Yeah. And I'm actually really quite happy with that.
Like, I'm not sort of,
I definitely am not like, I don't, spend $100 on a candle. Like I won't do that. I think that's probably more kids' clothes. Definitely. Like I'm super like lean. I'm like the rate at which they churn through them. I'm Kmart cotton on.
Yeah.
Like I keep it super kind of tight there. I think they're sort of my biggest ones because I like to spend money on restaurants, experiences, travel.
Date night, I saw.
Date night, absolutely. Every single week we do date night.
That's important.
So I spend it there, I think is where I spend it, yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on to today's podcast. I'm so incredibly grateful, and this is just, it's funny, every now and again I glance at my notes and I'm like, no, I just need to listen. and I've got this other question I want to ask, but I'm not sticking to my list. I hope this is okay. So
it has been amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. I loved it.
For all the listeners, please make sure you go and follow Sally at Swish as well, both her personal account and obviously the business account, personal account and business account. And thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being so honest and transparent, even about your pending bankruptcy and corporate
am I going to go to jail?
Yeah.
I didn't pay the loan back.
All right, everyone, have a fantastic week, and thank you so much for listening. If you can leave a rating and review, as always, I'd be so grateful. Ciao for now.